M or W, up or
Do you wanna
down,
serve
balls
or
up,
do you wanna
balls down,
return?
POD.
Which side is the sun, man? Are we serving?
Wait, which way is that?
Spin the racket.
Welcome back to Spin the Racket, the recreational tennis pod, covering everything from the Pro Tour to the everyday league player. I'm your boy G.
And I'm Lou.
Today, we have an exciting episode. We're talking about the biggest turf war in all of sports, tennis versus pickleball. America's fastest growing sport is literally taking over the tennis courts. Can these two sports peacefully coexist? We'll dive into the game, share our perspectives, and we'll, of course, hit our Spin the Racket segment where we have an interesting topic for debate. There's a lot to discuss today, so let's get into it.
All right, G, so let's get into it. Tell me a little bit more about what you've been up to this past week. You've got some exciting stuff going on.
Yeah, it's been a busy week. I feel like, tennis obviously dominates everything that I do typically. So this past Sunday, flew up to DC for the City Open. So visited a couple of friends up there. Had a pretty good time. It was fun just to actually see a tennis tournament live and up close. Like obviously we have the Atlanta Open most years, and sadly it's RIP.
Yeah, topic for another day, right?
Exactly, literally. But yeah, the City Open was really cool. So it's an ATP and WTA tournament, which is kind of cool to see both men and women there, 500 level. And so you see some really good players. So like Taylor Fritz was playing in there, Shelton, you got Tiafoe, then you also have Big Foe. Then you also have like some top women, Pagula is playing, Osaka, like you have like a really good crew. So win on Monday, like it's hot out there. Like DC, obviously I think about Atlanta, the heat, the humidity, we get in the 90s, maybe 100 or something like that. But like I was like, oh, DC's a little further north, maybe it'll be like 10 degrees
right?
cooler or something.
You'd think.
Yeah. But it was hot.
I've been to New York City in the summer, and it's same thing. It's like, it's sweaty.
Yeah, it's like baking. So we're out there just getting hit by the sun, but like it was good tennis. So we saw like Lorenzo Musetti, he played against Cam Norrie. That was like a really, really good 3-set match. Got a chance to see one of my favorite players, Venus Williams, up close.
I saw that story.
Bro, that was amazing. She's 45 years old.
That's crazy.
And she was just crushing it. The returns, like the timing was great. Like obviously, when you're 45, maybe you're not moving as quickly as you normally do.
Right.
Still, she was moving really well and covering a lot of ground. Like they hit a couple drop shots against her, and she's like 3 steps later, boom, there for a winner. I was just like, whew.
And that's the crazy thing about experience, right? It's the anticipation that these players have. A lot of people talk about, Rafa's movement, obviously glorious, right? But like the reason why the guy was also able to get to those balls is not just because he had the legs, he also had very good read on the ball's trajectory, anticipation. And I think as a lot of players gain that experience, they also get a little bit smarter about their movement, right? You're not just kind of like answering to every ball. You're able to see where it's going to go. You identify patterns. Hey, this person likes to play these patterns. That probably played a part into that, being able to see that drop shot faster. And then some people are not as good as Carlos disguising it.
Exactly. No, I think that's exactly right. And it's funny because I was with a buddy at the game, and I was just saying how she's not trying to play these long, drawn out, 14-shot rallies. It's kind of like, hey, I want to serve, maybe like hit that +1 and be done. And just, exactly. That kind of like quick points are over fast. But yeah, that was a really great match. Definitely the highlight of that experience. And I did see Big Ben just bombing aces. He played against Mackie McDonald.
All-American showdown.
Yeah. That was a fun match to watch too. That tournament is just super intimate. All of the facilities are really, really small, really tight. So, but in a good way. Not like oh my God, I feel like I'm up against somebody else, but you're pretty close to the court. So it's funny, like when you're out there and you're watching really good tennis and really good pros play, it just makes you want to get out there and start hitting right away. I'm just like, give me a tennis court, give me a racket. Like I want to play too.
Did you go with friends that you play tennis with?
I did. So there's a friend of mine, Brad. Shout out to Brad. He listens to the pod. He is from Atlanta. And so when he was here, we actually used to play T2 together and some of those recreational leagues and play dubs. So it was fun to actually watch tennis with him and kind of talk about some of the plays and stuff. He understands the game, which is cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
But that's why I hit you up to be like, hey, let's hit later in the week. So I know I had to.
I mean, we have kind of a pretty regular schedule now of like hits. It's just like mental health as part of it. We talked about it, right? So, It's obviously really hot. So,
Very
I mean,
hot.
just like the players out there, us watching here in Atlanta, it's really hot. But what else do you do? Are you not going to play? I'm not chicken. I'm
Right.
not snowflake. I'm definitely going to get out there. And yeah, I
Got it.
might not be able to run. I think this past one, like, I think we gassed out after like 30 minutes. I don't know about you, but
Yeah,
I
it
just
was
felt like
scorching.
I was just like, dude, like, just try to use as much as my biomechanics and my body as possible without, exerting too much effort.
Honestly, it's hot out there. I know. What are you working on in your game right now?
Well, I'm not just a tennis fan. I'm also a tennis player, right? So we learned that Gerard over here is a tennis player and a tennis fan, and he goes on these impromptu trips. Hopefully, next year, we'll be able to go together. I didn't get the invite for this year, but
You're feeling sore about that. It's okay. It wasn't intentional, but
yeah.
I got you next time.
Good. Maybe next year we'll get to, interview the players or do something with Spin the Racket. That would be fantastic. I've been working on my serve. If I think the moment you start playing tennis, it's the moment that you will never be good enough. And when you realize you're always going to have to work on something and it feels like you're playing whack-a-mole a little bit and you get a bad habit somewhere. And it's like, shoot, I always talk about like perception being like reality. And the only way to like change that is to gain perspective. So I've been getting some advice from a friend of mine that's a coach out in San Diego. Shout out to Core Tennis Tips. He actually, started his own little journey of, being a content creator and bringing everything he's doing on court to, Instagram and probably TikTok. But so, yeah, I mean, I don't have a coach. It's really hard to get a coach when you're an adult, right? It's just make the time and all the stuff. It's an investment as well. And we can get into all that later on. But, I happen to be blessed with a friend that can have that clinical eye. I'm able to troubleshoot. And I think, we for anyone that's listening, like the best thing you can do is record yourself, look at what you're doing and analyze and figure out what you're doing that needs to be improved. But in my case, my serve has been kind of an afterthought. I think when you're always playing league and stuff like that, you just like never get to work on things individually, especially as an adult. We're so busy. It's not like
you have time.
It's not like your dad's dropping you off and then you're going to practice and stuff like that. You're playing Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon for those of us that, join in the summer.
Are you getting back to those triple digits on your serve though? Getting
yeah, and that's the beauty of it. It's like Edgardo has been able to. Essentially, what I did is I recorded myself serving, which I hadn't done a serve practice in so long. So I said, you know what? He was like, hey, record yourself. Let me take a look at it. I'll give you some advice. This guy takes my video. I send him a couple videos. Takes my video, starts taking these screenshots of my basically stills, right? So where he catches me in the trophy pose and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he starts drawing on the actual photo where I should be tossing the ball and where my right foot should be. I have a pinpoint serve.
Okay.
So obviously it complicates a few things. So he's like, hey, your legs not where you're starting off like at the wrong spot. You need to move your leg here. You need to move your toss here. Then he proceeds to send me a slow-mo video of Nick Kyrgios serving. And he goes, this is what you have to do. And then he's like, dude, you have the body, you have the technique. It's just, we need to get you to serve pancakes like this guy is doing. And I'm like, that's funny because we have similar mechanics, I would say. I've looked at trying to maybe mimic a little bit of Ben Shelton's serve, but that's pretty extreme, I would say. Like his trophy, it's like his hips are just out of this world. I don't have that hip mobility.
Yeah, maybe we like break that down one day for the pod or something.
Yeah, that's
put your visuals on, not mine.
Yeah, so that's one of those things. So Edgardo wants to be on the pod. He's going to be in probably, I don't know, episode 4 or 5. We'll see. We've got to plan it out. I told him, hey, I want you to come up with a list of things that you want to talk about.
I like that.
And what he wanted to do was break down my serve progression and where I was at the beginning and how he managed to basically. It's already miles better. I think we did a little bit of a practice and I feel like my serve is just like so much more effortless. Like I'm wasting a lot less energy and not even trying. I feel like, it's definitely hitting triple digits. So it is,
nice.
It's cool.
I love that. Yeah.
Online coaching.
Yeah. Let's put you up on the screen, get that before and after.
Moment,
critique.
Man. Yeah. Everyone's going to be able to critique my serve and be like, this guy.
What is this?
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah. And it's funny we're talking about tennis practice and hitting. And obviously you and I hit like once a week now these days. play up at Sandy Springs Tennis Center, and they just built this new pickleball center as part of Sandy Springs, right? So like it makes me
The stadium courts.
the stadium court. They took over the stadium courts right there.
Courts 1, 2, 3, and 4, which used to be, to me, some of the slickest courts I have ever played in. I mean, balls were flying super fast, but they were also, let's just call it center courts, right?
Like I remember playing an Alta mixed final there one year, and I felt like I was in a Grand Slam final, you know, because you have like
it's legit. It's a stadium court,
and like it was a good feeling.
And for the folks that are listening that may not be from the area, this is a tennis center that has, I think it's 24 courts. 24 courts, and courts 1 through 4 are basically the ones right by the shop, the pro shop, the clubhouse, whatever. And those are the stadium courts that were traditionally used to do a lot of the drills. I think there were a lot of lessons on those courts. And so what the facilities did was they turned 4 of the main tennis courts into 16 pickleball courts. They just redid the whole thing. I think they had sort of converted the back 3 courts into a pickleball area, but I think obviously, you know, they ran out of space. And so they made the decision, right? Of like, hey, we're gonna invest in all this.
Right.
Now I will say I don't have a problem with that. That's great because now there's like a dedicated space for it. Problem is the parking now.
Oh,
right?
atrocious.
Because let's just say playing doubles, you've got 4 courts, you've got 4 people, so that's 16 people that are can be on those courts. Now with 16 courts, it's now 64 people. Think about how many cars. They didn't really expand the parking lot.
That doesn't make anything better for us.
I remember going to hit on the day that they opened the courts, and someone called me from the tennis center, and they were like, hey, just to give you a heads up, we're going to be like doing the grand opening of the courts today.
Yeah. Okay.
You may not find parking. And I'm like, shoot, well, I'm just here to hit. You know what I mean? Like,
now you're parking way down the street by the Publix.
Yeah,
like walking up.
I'm just collateral damage.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Funny enough, I found parking.
Yeah, and like I was okay as well too with the idea of building a pickleball scene. Like I get it, and we'll get into the whole sport and where it is today. But there's also those clay courts there that are just in terrible shape.
Yeah,
it's like sand
courts,
and like
they're
I'm
not,
why
clay
not
courts.
Get rid of those.
No, I have yeah, right. I mean, no one's maintaining those.
Yeah, and
so that's definitely if that's the only if I think it's 3 or 4 courts.
Right.
If those are the only ones available, I'm not playing.
Right. Exactly.
Because it's like, yeah, the sand kind of like puddles in places, and so like the ball will just have like the worst. I mean, clay's already difficult, but like it'll die. The ball will die because it'll hit like a sand mount, and then you leave that place just like dusted.
You really do.
Dusted. Like it's insane. It's like you just went to the desert, went through a sandstorm, and then you just came back.
It's wild. Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what I've realized is that with pickle and tennis, I'm starting to see this relationship where it is pretty common for tennis courts to be converted into pickleball courts or to share it in some way. Like I can't tell you the number of times I walked up to public tennis courts with a friend and we're like, hey, there's 4 tennis courts here, like we should be fine, we can find a court to hit on. We'll walk up, got the gear, got the bag, the new shoes, like we're feeling good, ready to hit, ready to play. And then we get to the courts and they're just mobbed with pickleballers. Like the lines are on the court, you got these nets that they put out and everything, and so like there's like nowhere to play tennis. And so I think that's kind of what we're trying to dig into here is like how did we get here? And it happened really, really quickly. So like I'll give some stats just on pickleball and kind of
for it,
where it's going. So obviously the growth has been tremendous. There are nearly 20 million pickleball players in the US. 20 million. And that's a 45% increase from 23 to 2024 and a 311% surge over the last 3 years in general.
That's insane.
It's just growing astronomically fast.
It's the fastest growing sport, right?
It is, which is incredible. And so I think in 2020, the average age of a pickleballer was 41. What they're seeing now is starting to trend younger. So as of last year, the average age was 35 years, which is also interesting. Like I would think that pickleball would be better suited for older folks, because like, it is a smaller court, easier for them to move around. There's social aspect, but apparently it's really popular.
Everybody likes it. Everybody likes it. That's the thing, right? It's a lot the barrier of entry is a lot lower.
Yep.
And so, I mean, think about the stat that you gave at the beginning, right? It's 20 million people
20 million
in the US playing pickleball. Now, I'll tell you, I'm not mad about that. I'll tell you why, because that is probably out of, let's say, 20 million people. Let's just say it's 19 million people more active than 5 years ago, right? So,
Good
you
for
know,
fitness.
you can't, like, you've got to correlate, and I don't have the math for that to tell you, oh, well, you know, out of those 20 million people, well, I don't know, 18 million were sedentary. But
Right.
think about that
Right.
from a societal perspective. That's fantastic. That's people getting out there
It
and
is.
doing a physical activity, getting some sunlight. Like, you know, I'm
Yeah.
a big health nut. So, like, from a health perspective, I'm a big advocate. Yeah, I'm a tennis purist. Like, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. I have never played pickleball.
Really?
I have never played
That
pickleball.
kind of shocks me.
Right. But I'll tell you why.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
From my perspective, right? I'm gonna use an analogy here.
Okay.
So I ski.
Yep.
I tried snowboarding once, just thinking, you know what, like, I want to pick it up. It sounds cool and all that stuff. I realized, like, I am a much better skier than I am a snowboarder. And in order for me to become better at snowboarding, I would sacrifice time put into becoming a better skier. So you kind of have to pick which path you want to get better at, because reality, they're two different disciplines. Yeah, they require balance and all that stuff. But if I want to become a good snowboarder, then I have to basically stop practicing skiing, right?
Yeah.
You can't do both
Can't do
because
both.
we don't live in the mountains. So
Right.
I'm not
Finite
in
time.
Colorado or Utah where I can just go and do both at the same time. So I was like, do I become a better skier or do I become a okay snowboarder?
Right.
And I decided I want to become a better skier.
Right.
So with tennis and pickleball, it's kind of the same thing. I've played racquetball, badminton before, and it does mess a little bit with your sense of touch.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a different racket length, whether paddle,
yeah,
whatever you
the
want to call
size
it. It's
of
a
it,
different
yeah.
length. It's
Yeah.
a different weight. It's a different feel. So it
Yeah.
does change your feel a little bit. And
Yeah.
it's happened to me with racquetball. So
sure.
one is I don't want to mess up my feel. But number two is I don't have the time and I've not been in the setting to where I've had to play it. I haven't put myself in that situation. I haven't had friends like ask me, hey, you want to go play pickleball? And I refuse to buy any gear for pickleball. So I would probably go to one of those, like, you know, places where you can rent a paddle or whatever and just kind of play. Because if I'm going to spend my money, I'm going to spend my money on tennis, which already has a cost associated with it. You know, we go through a can of balls every 2 hours, like, you know, booking courts, all that stuff. So I'm going to put my money on my primary sport.
That's fair.
So that's, you know, being vulnerable here. I've never played the
Yeah.
sport, so I have like kind of like a virgin perspective to this whole thing.
Yeah, you seem pretty open to it.
I'm open. I have nothing against it. I have told my wife actually that if I were to play pickleball, I would probably go lefty.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I'm sure it has an advantage somewhere.
Maybe, but the reality being, it's not gonna mess with my
Your
my tennis.
game. Ooh,
I know it's sacred. It's sacred, man. You
That
know,
is a smart move there. Yeah. You know, I'll give a little bit on tennis and where tennis is today and kind of weigh in on my opinion on
Okay.
pickle. And so tennis participation in the US has risen to 25.7 million players in 2024. So that was an 8% increase over 23, a 46% increase from 2019. Obviously, we know what happened in 2020, why there was such a big uptick. I think a lot had to do with pandemic. Let's get outside. We can't be anywhere else. Get on a tennis court, play a sport. Super,
Positive.
Yeah, like social distancing was so easy with tennis. Like you're literally across the net as far away as possible. from
one
someone.
could argue there's better social distancing with tennis as compared to pickleball.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I mean, obviously, yeah, so there was that increase within tennis over the last several years. What's interesting, though, is when you look at tennis, obviously the courts are physically there. There's a large space for tennis in terms of the material that go down. And so it's pretty easy for pickleball courts to be put on tennis courts. You just kind of paint some new lines. You don't have to really do that much work. And so nearly 10% of the country's tennis courts have been taken over or repurposed for pickleball courts as of recent. And I find that to be very interesting because, you know, if you're thinking about these two sports coexisting peacefully, like you can't have one sport cannibalize the other's real estate. Like how can
we have an
tennis continue to
infrastructure.
grow?
Yeah, we have an infrastructure problem. That is the reality of it. That's my take on that. It's just it's an infrastructure deficit. And so I have no issue with pickleball whatsoever. I can block out the noise. It's a little bit louder, whatever. There's a lot of opinions on that, but I mean, every sport's going to have a level of noise. Well, depends on where you want to put them, right? I think in like heavily populated residential areas, there might be some complaints, but let's say a public park, has plenty of let's just say land around it.
Right.
My issue is when I want to go play tennis and then it becomes a problem because there's reduced infrastructure for tennis. And so it feels like it's cannibalizing a little bit of the tennis infrastructure. I understand, right, from a practical standpoint and financial standpoint, it's really easy to repurpose stuff, but you're affecting the quality of life, if we want to say that. I mean, it sounds very like first world-esque, like the quality of life of the tennis player.
Exactly.
But that is the only part where it has annoyed me, is when I don't even mind the lines. I know some people have some hot takes on like the lines. Well, I get distracted. I'm not an easily distracted person. It's funny to say that because in the middle of a match, it's a different thing. But the lines don't get to me or whatever. And sometimes it just depends on, some people pick some random color choices for surfaces. And then that's where I think it gets annoying.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, it's the fact that we are losing tennis courts to pickleball instead of like, municipalities thinking about expanding rather than kind of converting. And that's, I think, the challenge that we're facing. And I'm curious to know, out of the rise in the participation of tennis players, right? You said 25.7 million. How many of those came from pickleball? I feel like there might be a little bit of a correlation between people picking up, let's just call it a racket sport, and kind of blending between the two. I've heard some folks say, well, because we tried pickleball and we liked it, then we chose to try tennis as well. We wanted something a little bit more of a challenge. And let's be honest, like tennis is more difficult than pickleball in a general sense. I'm sure there's going to be nuances where pickleball might be difficult in certain areas and tennis is going to be whatever. But in general, generalizing this topic, it's a more difficult sport. And some people are looking for more of a challenge. And so they go into tennis, and vice versa. Some folks that are started maybe with tennis, then they found pickleball, and it's like, oh my gosh, I have so much more fun with this because I am just immediately better at it. And let's be honest, the biggest thing, the aha moment for me for tennis was when I was able to keep a rally going, right? That rally, that build up where you're getting to 10, 20 shots, and it's like, oh my gosh, who's going to mess up, right? Because it's inevitable.
The pressure's on.
Right. Tennis is a game of errors.
It is.
So is who's going to make the error first?
For sure. Yeah. And you bring up a good point about it just being an opportunity for folks who want to try racket sports out. Maybe they go from pickle to tennis and it's to pickle. And I think that's the way the USTA has looked at it from what I've read as well. They look at tennis as being in this group of racket sports with squash and badminton and ping pong.
Padel
and all of these sports. And they look at it as opportunity to partner and figure out how can we grow all of our games. I do think there has to be conversation around the infrastructure piece. We do have to figure out how can we continue to build more tennis courts and add on infrastructure there if we do want all of these sports to survive and exist peacefully.
Yeah, when stuff's growing rapidly, I get it. You just kind of put your head down and you focus on the operations, right? But I'm a big fan of like, hey, at some point you've got to come up for air and look at the strategy. And it's all about being intentional. Like, will we be able to minimize the conversion rate? Probably not, because I guarantee you there are some parks in some areas where it's worth converting, but it's like if you're never intending to kind of take a look at it and focus on expansion rather than conversion, and that just becomes an afterthought. It gets lost in the sauce.
It does.
Yeah, no one thinks about it, no one talked about it, and then all of a sudden everything got
exactly. It'll be interesting to see. Like, obviously there's so much money being invested into pickleball right now, from new facilities and new businesses, neighborhood courts, indoor complexes, or these new places. Even in Atlanta, we have like Painted Pickle and the ITA Tennis Center and such that have all these new courts and facilities. And so I think there's a market there that they've found, and they're trying to take advantage of that.
I want to try one of those. I want to go to the Dave and Buster's / like bowling alley of pickleballs. You know what I mean? Like where you can like go pickle indoors. You don't have to worry about like. Let's be honest, like I'd love to have more indoor tennis courts, and that's a topic for another day. We have a lot of things to talk about, G. But indoors, it's gamified, right? Obviously it's already game / sport, whatever you want to call it, but you're playing a game. You have food, drinks. You can go with people because it's a lot easier to play. So it's a lot easier to socialize with this with the sport. And yeah, just have a good time. You know, it's like going to Top Golf instead of going golfing in the heat for like 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I realized I probably didn't give my perspective on the two as well. I've been kind of just analyzing the data, giving you some stats.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely put the glasses on while I've just been here like, you know what, I've never played pickleball.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what, like, yeah, I've been just going at it. But yeah, what do you think about it?
So similar to you, I mean, I actually played pickle maybe once or twice. Like I'm not like an expert in the game by any means, or an avid pickleball player.
We need to get somebody that's like a legit like pickleballer here to give us that. Because right now and not to interrupt you, but right now I've never tried it and you've played it twice. Yeah. So you're getting this from like two people that are like the uninitiated, you know, and it's like, oh, you've never pickled before. Like,
yes.
You don't know what are you talking about, but it's like,
the true lovers of pickle to be out here.
Yeah.
On the pod.
We'll get somebody. We'll bring this around.
We'll do that. Yeah. So I'm trying to leave the door open for the opportunity to feel that passion that those avid pickleballers feel. I obviously look at it from the point of view of being a tennis player who wants to go practice, and I see pickleballers on my court and I get a little frustrated, like, why are you here? You're taking over my court that I came to play my sport on. But I get it. I understand it's part of how it's set up right now, and I'm optimistic that, like I said, we can figure out how to make it work with both of us. But I'll try it. I'll give it a shot, and actually try to dive into it a little bit deeper, but I'm keeping an open mind on it.
That's all we can do, right? It's like, at the end of the day, it's a sport. The more people are playing, more people are being active. So there is a benefit to that. But it's all perspectives, man. My perspective is I'm a tennis player. Your perspective, you're a tennis player. So it does affect us in some way, shape, or form. It inevitably, at some point, right? We've come across a situation where it's a little bit of a confrontation. Yeah, we've yet to see what folks are going to do kind of on a large scale, what the USTA is going to do, what the integration is going to be with, existing facilities. There's there's a whole pro tour now. So
right, exactly.
What is it, the PPA?
Yeah, totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
There's so much going on there. I think there's like over 50 different pro tournaments for pickleball right now.
There's pros, there's tennis pros that are, what is it, Sam Querrey has got into it, Jack Sock.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's just crazy, you know? This whole thing that we're all kind of just catching up with.
Yeah, really are. So obviously much more to discuss on that. We'll, like you said, we'll have some people who actually play pickle really well be on the pod, share some perspective. Folks who have businesses in pickleball, maybe we get someone who runs one of those academies or one of those venues we talked about to come on the pod as well.
If you're listening to this, or if you're watching this, like, and you know anybody that owns a facility, or hey, you're interested, just comment on this.
Yes.
Get involved. Like, we want to hear your opinion on this. You know, what's a positive thing, what's a negative thing? Like,
please.
There's always pros and cons to everything, and that kind of brings us into the next segment of the pod, right?
Yeah,
we love it, pro and con. So, you want to give us a little bit of a snippet on this?
Yeah, so we got our Spin the Racket segment coming up here. So this is where we focus on one topic. We get to debate the pro side of it, the con side of it. But the trick is that we don't know which side we're going to debate until we spin the racket.
Yeah, we have to kind of learn a little bit more about the topic. And then, we're here to show you that everything inevitably has a pro and a con, right? And then there's always going to be opposing views. And it's sometimes it's coming to an agreement and maybe finding the middle. Sometimes it's just agree to disagree, right?
That's true. So you want to lay out the topic for us?
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about whether the ATP should standardize the balls on tour, right? There's a lot of nuances about that. There's a lot of opinions about that. But we want to know if the tennis balls should be standardized across all tournaments, or if it should stay the same. And for those of you that don't know, every tournament has a official ball partner, and so that changes from tournament to tournament, and the players have to play with different balls across all 52 weeks of the year. Not that they play that many weeks, but
same? Is it like ATP and WTA both like have different balls for everything?
I'm not sure about the WTA. I think it's just kind of the same thing. It's like, each tournament has their own ball partner, and obviously it's lucrative for these tournaments. So we're going to get into the why that is the way it is, and why it might be one-sided if it's like that. But yeah, so let's go ahead and give it a spin.
Yeah, we got our trusty head racket
with the broken strings.
With the broken string, because
it's funny because like we have like a bunch more rackets just sitting in our cars.
This is special,
but those are ready to be played on. This one's actually for sale. It's been for sale for so long.
Just dropping that.
It just gave me it's an amazing racket, but it gave me wrist pain.
That was your free ad you just dropped in there. So you just hey, hit me up.
Yeah, if you want to get check out Facebook Marketplace.
Okay, so with the head rackets, of course, we got up or down. So we will spin this. Are you gonna do up or are you gonna do down?
Let's go ahead. I'll do up.
That was a great spin.
Pick it up. Yeah, you got to show the camera.
It is down.
Oof.
So that means I get to pick whether or not I want to give the pro or the con.
Tell us what the pro is, Gerard.
So I think about it from 3 points. So first off, I think from an injury prevention standpoint, there's some good things to think about as it relates to standardizing the balls. You think about going into a heavy, very humid climate, having a very heavy ball. Obviously that's a lot of pressure on your wrists and shoulders and elbows. Then you go to another climate and you're playing with this super light, quick, airy ball. There's a lot of variation there, like tournament to tournament. And so I think just as you look at these players who've had these bad wrist injuries over the years, about wrists, right? Like you always tape up your wrists.
Tell me about it.
Before practice.
I mean, it's always the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder.
Yeah. You think about like Martin Del Potro or something like that, and the troubles that he had. But, we can't say obviously it's only tied because of the ball, but consistency helps to reduce some of that repetitive strain on those parts of the bodies. And so you think about some of the ball dynamics week to week being changed and varied, that could potentially
tweak their technique a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. It could have a potential effect on their health. And, related to technique, I do think that as it relates to performance and preparation for some of these tournaments, there likely is a benefit of having standardized balls too. So you think about switching from brand to brand, like maybe you are adapting to that ball in a way, and that technique, it may change, or that strategy may change around what that ball is, and probably add some complication into your preparation for that tournament. And how do you warm up and practice around that ball and that speed or the weight of it or the feel of it. Like I know some players have like remarked about that before, where it's just like, oh, this ball feels like apples, and the other one feels like oranges in terms of density or the weight. The nail, yeah.
Said that.
And I think lastly, as it relates to just competitive fairness across the tournaments, right? Like I don't know if one tournament is being played more because they have the Dunlop ball versus like one has like the pinballs, which I know you hate, and so maybe there's like some variation there. Maybe
it's out.
The secret's out. Sorry, I just blew up your spot. But maybe that could be a thing where someone's like, I actually literally hate playing with these balls. I'm not going to play in a tournament. Like now, will they skip 1,000 Masters tournament? Probably not. But if it's a 250 in a random spot where they know the ball is going to be like heavy and hurt their wrists, maybe you do. So I think those are some of the things that I think about in terms of providing that pro for standardization.
Yeah, on my side, obviously I have to go against it. I have mixed feelings about this whole thing, but practically speaking, it's just a variable, right? The players already have to deal with multiple variables. So if you think about it, it's like, well, it feels like a little bit of a nuance where, the players have to deal with temperature changes across, they're traveling across the globe. So they're different temperatures, different surfaces. There's going to be wind, there's going to be different altitudes. Inevitably, even if you have the same ball, it's going to play a little bit differently wherever you play it. Those are already factors that they have to account for. So if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, a different ball may not be like a huge deal. But, if I had to kind of bring up like 3 things that I want to talk about here, number one would be the financials and the contracts involved in all this. I think, I already talked about some of these tournaments rely on these lucrative deals with these ball manufacturers for the livelihood of the tournament. Number one is going to be that it's going to destabilize the equilibrium that is in the partnerships that are already established between tournament organizers, the ATP and the WTA. So that brings me to my second point, which would be kind of a lot of pushback from the tournament organizers. So you may end up having a little bit more of a revolt in your hands, or you may, again, we're talking about financials of these tournaments, and this would impact the how lucrative some of these tournaments are. So you may even have some folks, some organizers back out some of these events, and so you might have even a reduced amount of tournaments on the tour. So there's definitely a financial impact to all this. And then number 3 would be kind of the loss of the local nuance of the ball, right, or with the surface. So I talked about that being another factor. If you kind of standardize across the board, then you're going to have a ball that may play really well on hard courts, but may play really bad on clay or on grass, right? So that's another thing too. And if I can say, my 4th point would be it kind of creates a monopoly. Um, One of the things that players have complained about, and it's Zverev has been very vocal about it over the years, is the loss of ball quality. It feels like the balls are getting slower and they're getting crappier, and so you all of a sudden lose that competitiveness, that competition that drives innovation and it drives performance. And so that's another fear that I would have if one company were to have that lucrative deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are all good points. I think I like what you've highlighted around the financial piece too, as it relates to these companies having a little bit of competition. It does, of course, encourage innovation and making sure they're keeping up with their game and they're keeping that quality high.
Keep them in check,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, you start producing very crappy balls, you're going to be out of business because there's other balls available, right?
Exactly. I do think there is a lot of benefit in having some of those balls be maybe fewer, as it relates to keeping it consistent across the group. And I think from the standpoint of that local nuance, it's an interesting point as well. When you think about a grass court ball versus a clay court versus a hard court, like obviously, yes, there are these little pieces that are going to be a little bit different. I wonder how they can kind of solve for that.
Yeah, a potential resolution that I came to mind is obviously having an official ball per surface. That way you have a hard court ball, you have a clay court ball, and then you have a grass ball. And so
Right.
like even they only have to change balls when they change surface, so at least they maintain some level of consistency. One thing though, thinking about this like potential impact, right, is like imagine the impact that it would have on recreational players. Let's be honest, like balls have gotten more expensive over the years. I wonder if that one lucrative deal could maybe, because of the increased production of tennis balls for the tour, could have a financial impact on the cost of the end result, right, to an end consumer like us. Imagine if we have a higher volume manufacturer get a more lucrative deal with the ATP and WTA, if that will transfer into maybe cheaper balls for the recreational player, that would be a pro.
That's the glass half full view
Glass
of that.
half full
I
mentality.
don't.
I mean, one could hope, but reality is
Or like,
probably
let's
wouldn't
pump
be
the
case.
prices up.
Yeah,
Like,
pump the prices up. Like
where else are you gonna go?
yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
But I mean, that's just it. I know the ATP is already working on this stuff. They're thinking about standardizing within the next couple of years. They're
good.
waiting for some contracts to phase out and stuff. Again, contracts are in place, so that
Right.
is another thing. But
Yeah.
they're waiting for contracts to phase out. They're working with some of the players. There's a little bit of a tiger team put
I would
together.
hope so. Yeah, I feel like getting that player's perspective would be important and understanding
Sure.
some of that quality data from them in terms of like, okay, is it really this bad at X tournament versus this tournament? Like, give us some anecdotal data and feedback.
At the end of the day, they're the ones that are. I mean, they're the experts, right? They're the ones that have the biggest feel. They're the ones that are seeing the
Exactly.
balls. So they're the test group in a way,
Yes.
and the ones that can provide the most valuable data. Obviously, recreational players aside, yeah, I think that's the test group right there. But yeah, that kind of leaves us to the point where it looks like it's inevitable that balls will be standardized. There are pros and cons around everything in life. Honestly, it just depends on where you look at it from. But it'll be exciting to see. Hopefully, more than the idea itself, I found that the implementation tends to be a little bit more crucial than what's actually being done. It's how it's implemented can determine the quality of life, right, of the player. So we'll see. It'll we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, if you're listening this far, I mean, let us know too. Like, we want to hear from you. Like, drop a comment in there. Just include your favorite ball brand, right? Just drop it in there.
Yes, let's start a ball war. You know what I mean? Yeah, let's figure out who's who in the chat, right? In the comments. So yeah, with that, that closes out our spin the racket segment, and I think that brings us to the end of the episode. We have, we've covered obviously the turf wars, which is probably going to be a ongoing topic we're going to bring up again. And we just, right now we gave the perspective from someone that's never played pickleball.
Yes.
And then from someone that has played some pickleball, right?
Mhm.
Both tennis players. So, but we're going to have someone on this pod that is going to be either from the infrastructure side, to someone maybe like a business owner for like a pickleball facility, or maybe a pickleball coach, or maybe a pickleball player. We're trying to bring in different perspectives. And so stay tuned for that. And with that being said, thank you for joining.